I remember the moment it all changed, like it was yesterday. Not because of the alarms, not because of the noise, not because of explosions or heroic dialogue, but because of a cold, almost invisible shift in the way the aircraft felt beneath me. That creeping sensation that something was wrong before the red lights ever blinked, before systems began to expire one by one, before the soldiers in the cabin even knew what was happening. And in that instant, in that half-heartbeat after takeoff, I knew this flight wasn't routine. This was going to unfold into the most defining moment of my entire career and possibly my life. I am Captain Sarah Walker. And on that day, the enemy wasn't some distant fighter jet or a missile from halfway across the world. The enemy was right here, at my base, hiding in plain sight within the ranks of those I trusted. And I discovered that truth only when the C-17 started dying in the air right above our heads. And I'm going to take you through every second of it, every calculation, every doubt, every desperate decision that defined life and death from 30,000 feet. From the moment we began our climb, everything seemed normal, the engines humming with that familiar resonance like the heartbeat of a well-oiled machine, the vibrations steady beneath my palms on the yoke, the radio chatter flickering in and out as we communicated with control. But then a sudden flicker of light on the instrument panel drew my eye. A minor warning at first, just a simple hydraulic pressure drop. But it didn't behave like those I'd seen before. This one faded in and out like a heartbeat skipping rhythm. And that tiny inconsistency was when my body recognized that something was very wrong before the alarm sounded. Because aircraft don't malfunction in whispers. They fail with a scream. And as the light blinked again, the first alarm began its ritual, a mechanical scream that sucked all air out of oxygen masks and replaced certainty with confusion. And in the cockpit, my co-pilot looked at me without speaking, because in a moment like that language becomes unnecessary when instinct and experience take over. I keyed the intercom, and my voice came out clearer than I felt. Maintain calm. We are assessing the situation. And while I said it, I knew that calm in this situation was not the absence of fear, but the deliberate choice to focus my mind entirely on what could be controlled, because panic is contagious and kills faster than gravity does. And as I began isolating systems according to emergency procedures, the second set of lights blinked into existence. This time not randomly, but in a cascading failure pattern. Backup systems disengaging, redundancies collapsing like a house of cards shaken by tremors, and the realization settled in, not slowly, but like cold water poured over my head. This was not a mechanical failure. This was sabotage. Behind me in the cabin there was a shift, soldiers tightening their straps, adjusting helmets, checking weapons and gear, their eyes flicking toward the cockpit door with a mixture of curiosity and fear. And someone, a young private close to me in age, asked, "Are we under enemy fire?" And before anyone answered, a familiar voice behind him said, "No, this isn't from outside. That's systems dropping internally." And that exchange, simple as it was, crystallized the truth. Someone on base had compromised this aircraft, not to delay us, not to send a warning, but to kill us. And the magnitude of that understanding reframed every decision I was about to make, because when human sabotage replaces mechanical malfunction, you realize the threat isn't random, it's personal. Next came a rapid series of system checks that I've repeated hundreds of times in flight simulators. But this was not like training, not even close, because in training you know what failure scenario you are facing. Here I had no script, no prepared set of cues, just a machine failing with deliberate precision, as if an expert hand had placed each fault exactly where it would do the most damage. And as I disabled one system after another, I could hear the alarms overlapping, high-pitched frequencies blending into a chaotic chorus of warnings. But I had to override instinct to panic, and instead break it down into one decision at a time, choose between options where none were safe. And that's when the voice came again. Not calm, not controlled, but edged with fear. Someone in the cabin said, "She's going to kill us." And I felt that phrase like a blow. Not because it was charged with fear, but because it so clearly expressed the raw panic of being suspended between life and death. I turned toward the co-pilot with a steady gaze. Because others were listening, others were relying on me, and even though the moment felt like every rule book in the world was burning at my feet, I said, "This plane is compromised. Automation cannot be trusted. We will go manual." And I cut the engines, not because I wanted to, but because I had to, because leaving power running under false signals would have fed corrupted data into every system and guaranteed a catastrophic outcome. And when I severed that connection and felt the plane's inertial shift, a silence unlike any other enveloped us. Not peaceful, no. It demanded my full attention, like being dropped into a void where gravity became the only opponent and the horizon the only anchor. From that moment on, every second was a battle against inevitability. The grounded hum of normal operation replaced by the raw mechanics of descent, gliding, heavy, unforgiving, and I scanned the ground for a landing area, not a runway, not even close to one. Just patches of earth that might give us a fighting chance. Dry fields, dirt roads, anything that wasn't concrete or water, and I grasped at those choices like someone drowning clutches at wood. Because a compromised transport plane without engine assistance is like a wounded animal trying to fly one last time, and you realize survival isn't about precision. It's about resisting pull of gravity with every ounce of determination you have. Behind me, whispers became preparation. Fear became determination. Soldiers unbuckling, checking equipment, braces tightening, their breathing becoming more rhythmic, because once panic is replaced with readiness, the body switches from fight or flight into focus, and that shift, more than anything, told me we had something on our side, and I needed that, not just to land this plane, but to justify every choice I had made in the cockpit. Affirm that trust is more than a word. It's a necessity when chaos rules the skies. We descended through layers of cloud, the plane's metal frame groaning like a living creature under strain, and as the ground rushed toward us with increasing intensity, the landing gear impacted with bone-searing force, tires blowing, sparks showering out like streaks of lightning against dirt. And in that instant, the world felt suspended, not in fear, not in victory, but in the narrow gap where survival is measured in inches and quickness of thought. And when the plane finally came to a stop, dust swirling in the air, smoke rising from stressed components, and silence waiting like a verdict, I exhaled for the first time. I announced on the intercom, "Prepare for evacuation," and one by one soldiers unstrapped and emerged from that compromised aircraft like they were stepping out of a dream, exhaustion etched in every face, disbelief in every eye, and yet none of them turned away from me with blame. None of them recoiled in accusation. They only looked at me, an anchor in the storm, and that silence, that mutual understanding of what had just happened, was more powerful than applause, more meaningful than any medal. Later, during the investigation, it was confirmed, just as my instincts had told me in that cockpit, that someone from the base had accessed critical systems, altered controls, sabotaged hydraulics, and effectively engineered a catastrophic failure that should never have been possible. And when that report came out, when faces turned to me and words like heroism and incredible leadership were used, I realized something profound. Survival isn't just about escaping danger, it's about understanding it, confronting it, deciphering its origin, and most importantly, learning from it. Because when the enemy was at my base and tried to take everything from us, we lived because of choices made in moments where every automatic system had failed, but human resolve persisted. And if you've ever wondered what it feels like to stand on the edge of possibility with no safety net beneath you, to make decisions that defy protocol but preserve life, then remember this story not as an isolated experience, but as a reminder that when everything around you is engineered to fail, human determination, courage, skill, and choice can override suppression, betrayal, chaos. And that is not just survival, that is triumph of the spirit. And if you've ever felt underestimated, undermined, or overshadowed by circumstances beyond your control, leave a comment below with Kanj, just survived and rose. Because this story is not just mine. It belongs to anyone who fought through adversity and came out alive at the other side.